All right, everybody, it is time for the reveal show here of Out of the Park Baseball 25. We are here with, dare I say, the godfather himself, Markus Heinsohn, who has taken some time out of his very busy schedule as the game is about to release in the month of March. We cannot wait for this. Markus joining us from Germany. I say quarter of a century of Out of the Park Baseball. What's your reaction when you hear those words?
Disbelief. I think that's the word that comes to mind first. I mean, 25 years. It's crazy. I still remember when I was a student and I had this weird idea, and now it's like 27 years after this idea and has become my career, and I've met so many great people doing this, and it's just amazing. That's all I can say, really. It's so overwhelming. Yeah.
And it's a worldwide phenomenon. I mean, it's been embraced by different people all around the world. Of course, you're in Europe. We're here in the United States, and everywhere in between, people are just lapping it up. They are absolutely loving this game. What is the appeal about the Out of the Park Baseball franchise that you think really resonates with people who keep getting this game year after year?
I think there are two big things to this. Number one is that you are essentially creating a new baseball universe. It's like this thing that takes on a life of its own, and there are so many things to discover within each save game, whether it's like rich history, it's the players themselves, the player ratings, how they interact with each other, the game performances, all the box scores, all the reports, everything. It's like, if you want to, and this is what I sometimes do, I just start a fictional league in my birth year, which is 1977. And then I just simulate until 2023 or 2024, which is today. And then I just spend hours just looking at the statistics and at the history of this fictional baseball world. And it's amazing. There's so much to discover there. And the other thing is that as a user, you can set up the game any way you like. I mean, you can just play a regular Major League Baseball game or the Korean baseball organization if you want to, and it's really easy to set this up. But you can also spend hours creating your own baseball world with so many options and so many crazy things that you can try. And yeah, I don't know, this was when I started developing the game. I wanted something that is flexible and not something that's just completely static and where the road is already paved, right? So yeah, and I think over the years we've done a pretty good job with that. And right now there's almost nothing you can't do with the game, which is really incredible.
Yeah, this game has truly paved the way, its own way for this baseball universe that you've helped create over this last quarter of a century. When you kind of peel back the layers of this new game from, Out of the Park, the very original, to where it is today, we have new features this year. We want to get under the hood. What's the new feature you might be the most excited about here for OOTP 25?
I think it's a completely redone player development system for me personally, because this was always a part of the game where the user didn't really have much influence over. I mean, of course, you could hire different coaches, which would have different relationships with the players, and the coaches had strengths and weaknesses, so you could kind of, yeah, have a small influence over the development inside your minor league system. But now it's much bigger than that. You can really schedule training programs and tell certain players to work on their weaknesses, and you can basically instruct the coaches what to do with the players. And that's A, it's a lot of fun, and B, I think it's more realistic, right? I mean, if, for example, if you're like Billy Bean or something, somebody who wants really organization to focus on stuff like plate discipline, that would be a way that you can now implement this. And in the past, that wasn't really possible. And that's great. I like this. It's more interaction for the user, and more interaction is always a good thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, it helps tell the story of these players that live within the sandbox. I think immediately of a college player who was here, highly drafted, went to the majors, had two pitches, had a fastball and a changeup, didn't have a curveball, and really to evolve from a reliever to a starting pitcher, they needed that third pitch, and they sent them down to the minor leagues to work on that third pitch. Is that kind of how this is going to look? How will the development of players, when you tell them, hey, I want you to work on this skill, will that be happening at the minor league level, the major league level, or is it just going to be across the board?
It's both. First, you have off-season programs that you can schedule, and then during the season, you also have more control over the individual players. And yeah, it's a year-round thing, essentially. So two different systems which merge into one big goal, which is giving the user more control over the development of the minor league players here, and then even the major league players as well. I mean, there's often a time when major league players have weaknesses, and obvious weaknesses, and where they try to work with their coaching staff on those weaknesses, and then now you have control over that. Yeah.
Well, I've got to tell you, as a scout for Out of the Park Baseball, unofficially judging the game year after year, you would be hard pressed to find a weakness to the game when you talk about scouting players and all of that. I've got to tell you that year after year, Out of the Park just hits it out of the park with new features. It's not just a roster refresh like, all right, here you go. We're going to slap a new coat of paint on this and call it Out of the Park 25. We talked about the player development lab. Can you give us a sneak preview of some other new features that are coming to OOTP 25?
Another really, really big thing, which might not be completely obvious at first, is we have a completely recoded rating system, which was a really big headache during development. But I think it was worth it because we've expanded the scale of player ratings internally, which made the differences between the different minor league levels, for example. Whereas before that, it was just like sometimes just a dozen of ratings points, which didn't give much difference between the individual players at certain, yeah, sometimes it worked well, sometimes it didn't really. But now we've expanded the scale, and so the resolution of the player ratings is much finer now, which is also good for your control over the player development right now. So that's a really big thing, and that also has helped with the rating of the historical players when you play historical leagues. On top of that, for historical leagues, we have massive upgrades to the database, and we have much better defensive ratings now, which is a big thing. And yeah, and the AI obviously is also better because of this, because whenever you have a better rating system, the AI is able to evaluate the player in a better way and to set the rosters in a way that the team at the end performs better. So it might not be obvious at first sight. I mean, we did work a little bit on coloring the different ratings, but that's mostly cosmetic, of course. But under the hood, there have been like tons of changes. And I think this is the most realistic simulation of baseball that we've ever put out there, definitely.
Wow, even more realistic, which is saying something. We, when we talk about Out of the Park Baseball, people feel like it's a living, breathing organism. And one of those things that goes beyond the ratings and then makes it feel real is team chemistry. Team chemistry. Is that going to look different in OOTP 25?
Yeah, not only in the solo game, but also we have some fun things concerning this coming up in Perfect Team, but maybe we can tease this a little bit later. Yeah, team chemistry is also in solo leagues. It's a big thing, and we've worked on that as well. Mostly it's under the hood too, but now the chemistry also between players and coaches are much more important um, because of the changes of the player development system. And yeah, this is certainly something which you shouldn't ignore if you want to be a successful GM of your virtual franchise.
Well, we want to take a moment to thank all of the Out of the Park development community and the people behind the scenes, because Marcus, I'm sure you noticed that the hits just kept on coming. That from opening day, you would think like, okay, once the World Series ends, now it's time to really put 24 in the rear view. But your team really made a concerted effort to keep on putting out more content, really up until here we are, you know, uh, nipping on March's heels, and still more and more content. Can you talk about that effort to make sure that when people buy this game, whether it's through franchise mode or whether it's through Perfect Team, we'll be talking about in a little bit, that making sure that you have people's interest for that entire year if they do decide then to buy the next version of the game the following year?
Yeah, I'm big shout out to the team. Um, I think I have to remind everybody that we are a really, really small company, and those who are working on the content and Perfect Team is less than half a dozen guys, right? So other big games, they have like dozens of people working on this. And we are making it a much, much smaller team, but they are so dedicated and so talented. And yeah, I don't know where to begin because I'm not, my talents are elsewhere. I'm not like a content creator. And sometimes I just throw in my random ideas there, and the guys roll their eyes and say, like, okay, maybe you should stick to programming. And I'm like, okay, all right, let's do that. And yeah, they are amazing. And we have folks on the team who have like such vast, deep knowledge of baseball history that it's just never ceases to amaze me. It's just a great team. I mean, I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record, but those guys are amazing, really.
They really are. They're the unsung heroes, and we can't overstate that enough. That they are absolutely amazing. I know a lot of people in the community, Marcus, are very interested in Perfect Team. They love this. It's been a hit for them. They want to keep playing year after year after year. And we kind of alluded to it that there's going to be a change that a lot of people are very, very excited about. I don't know if there's one thing that's more exciting from the Perfect Team aspect that you might find a little bit surprising, but it's the tournament sandbox. What do you think about this addition to the lineup for Perfect Team and OOTP 25?
This has been requested for a long time, and yeah, I think it's a great quality of life feature, and for active tournament players, and we understand there are thousands of those. It will be really helpful and really fun to just experiment with the different rosters and set them up properly in advance, and just have a way to manage all the different rosters for all those different tournament types that we have. Yeah, it will be a great time saver, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. Certainly, yeah. I'm personally I'm not much of a tournament player, but I can see the appeal really. If you're participating in a few tournaments, whether it's just a few a week or if it's like dozens a day, it doesn't matter. It's a great feature, and people have been asking for this for a very long time. But now, as a version, it's gonna happen.
I think at least one person has asked me, they're curious, do you play Perfect Team? And if so, how do you play it?
I do, but I'm passive. So I sometimes open some packs. I never use the card drop, for example. I'm an observer. For me, it's just about observing the community and seeing how everything works. And yeah, like a passive fan of the game, essentially. That's what I am when it comes to Perfect Team. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that really got me interested in Out of the Park 24 was meeting the people of the theme team community, people who pour their heart and soul and time into making sure that when you play the game, we're talking about perfect team, that you can play it on a different level. You don't have to play by the rules, so to speak, where you just put out the best team and do that. And some people out there know exactly what I'm talking about. Some people do not. There's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes to make sure that if you would like to theme your team, in other words, pick some parameters for cards that you can play on your perfect team. For me, it's you see the number 42 back here. It's the Oakland 42s. Anybody who wore the number 42 or anybody who played for the A's. And it sounds like there may be some exciting news for theme teamers when we launch OOTP 25.
Yeah, yeah, certainly. We have a new system in place, which we will discuss later down when we reveal it on our road to release. But there will be a very, very cool new system in there, which is really going to help theme teamers and improve the team performance, and also maybe gives you a few new ideas how to build a theme team. And that's going to be a lot of fun. So this is one of the features that I personally designed and implemented during the development process. So nowadays the game is so big, can't possibly touch every single feature. It's just absolutely no way. The day only has 24 hours, unfortunately. But this is one of the features that I did from the ground up, because again, my way of playing Perfect Team is more in the direction of theme teams anyway. So I'm not the guy who wants to go to Perfect League and dominate everything. So I just want to have a little bit of fun, and this system will help with that. Certainly, yeah.
One of the things that I enjoy most about Out of the Park Baseball was I remember playing back in OOTP, OOTP4, creating players, creating fictional leagues, doing replays, all of those things. The one thing that OTP blew everybody out of the ballpark on that was simulating. Make sure that when you do play a player in the 2000s or the 1980s or whatever, that their statistics felt real, and that as you played fictional, the same thing. The one thing, as it was a text-based game back then, or an information data-based game, that it did not have was 3D. And I've got to tip my hat to you and your team to make the leap, because now one of my favorite things to do is play games on stream and announce play-by-play as if it's the real thing. And it feels like every year it keeps getting closer and closer to getting to the real thing. Do you feel like there is progress coming for OOTP 25? Is there more room to grow? Where do you feel things are, and how are things going?
Yeah, certainly. It's for us, it's hard to do like really, really big leaps each year in terms of graphical quality, because again, we are a very small team. In fact, we only have one single 3D developer. So we're doing the best we can, but we're working on this every single year. And this year we have several visual improvements. And on top of these improvements, we also have some really, really fun new retro filters. We are still unsure how to call this, but you can easily switch between different views inside the game. And if you want the whole thing to feel like it's a black and white TV from 1953, you can do it, which is really cool for historical leagues. And I think people will like this. And yeah, this is one of the small features that don't get too many headlines, but in the end, I think this feature will find many, many fans, and it's really a lot of fun. Yeah, and of course, we also updated animations and try to improve the physics of the ball flight and everything. And we make steady progress in those areas every single year. Yeah.
Wow. Marcus, I'm doing cartwheels over that last one you dropped on us. That is amazing. The whole filters to make it feel like, well, we'll find out more, obviously, but it sounds like black and white. And then when color TV came around, all of that. So again, the immersion is just amazing. Are there any features for the upcoming release that you think may not necessarily make headlines that people are going to be talking about, in the short term here. This was asked by my community, but would set you up and for future installments where it's kind of laying the groundwork for future years and out of the park?
Yes, but I can't talk about this right now. Again, check back later, and we will have a nice road to release where we have like several streams and several news releases and video releases and screenshots and everything about the new features. And there will be more cool stuff coming. Yeah.
There always is. There's always stuff on deck. Um, as far as the you playing the game, I'm kind of curious, and one of our viewers asked this as well. When you play the game, who do you play as? Is there a go-to team for you when you're playing out of the park baseball? Your very own game. You could pick any team. Who do you play as?
In the American League, it's the Boston Red Sox, which I pick most often. But sometimes if I want to play a National League team, I pick the Atlanta Braves. And Greg Maddox was my all-time favorite player because when I actively played baseball, some may not know this, but I played baseball for almost 15 years in the German league system. I was a pitcher myself, and I didn't throw particularly hard, but I roughly knew where I was throwing the ball. And for me, Greg Maddox was like a legend and yeah, my icon essentially. So that's where my love for the Braves comes from. But for the Red Sox, it's a different story. Actually, the owner of the Red Sox, John Henry, he contacted us a few years ago and told us that he was a big fan of the game. Yeah, which kind of made me an even bigger fan of the Red Sox, which I already was before because of their great run in the late 90s with Pedro Martinez and Nomar Garcia Parra. That was a cool team. Yeah, it's I don't know. Those are my favorite two teams when I actually play a modern day major league game. Yeah, but most of the time I play fiction games. Yeah.
We know how you play. We know how you roll with this game. Another fantastic year. OOTP 24 in the rear view. We set our sights to out of the park 25. Any final thoughts, Markus, as we let you go here on our reveal show?
Yeah, I would love to thank everybody who has been around, whether just 1 year or the entire 25 years, because I know there are a few from our community who have been there since May 1999 when I launched the first version of the game, sitting in my, I don't know, like 80 or 90 square feet student room back then at the University of Hamburg. And yeah, now it's 25 years later. It's kind of hard to fathom, but I'm so thankful. And every single one of you, thank you so much for your support over the years. I so much appreciate this. Thank you.
Well, the interview has come full circle because you talked about as a young man that this game was helping kind of paying for some of the bills. Perhaps I'm guessing in your 20s, and now out of the park is in its 20s. It's out of college. It's ready to enter the real world, so to speak, and all the age and all the time it's put in the rear view. And we're so excited about Out of the Park 25. Markus, thank you for sharing this baby, creating it with us, and then not only giving it to the world, but continuing to give it the love and attention that it rightfully deserves. Because without you, without your team, without this community altogether, it's a perfect combination. It's a perfect game, if you will.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the kind words, Sam. It's really appreciated.
All right. It is Out of the Park 25. Get those pre-orders now. Get your chance to play the game 3 days before release when it comes out on March 15th. Out of the Park 25, about to hit it again. Out of the Park.